It is not the strangeness of my new home that is keeping me awake at night, but a chorus of birds who sing long into the early hours of the morning. In the suburban streets of northwest London, in the middle of even this mild winter, these are not likely to be the nocturnal, migratory singing birds, nightjars, corncrakes, or nightingales. Unknowledgeable in ornithology, I must rely on the experts to suggest that these nighttime songsters could be song thrushes and dunnocks, but are most likely to be robins, apparently one of the early birds of the dawn chorus, and the night owls, if I can refer to them as such, the last of the singing birds to switch off at night. The website for the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds provides recordings of the songs of many different birds. Each verse of the robin's poetic chirpings, says the website, is different and lasts for 2 to 4 seconds. It goes on. The theme is watery, all gurgles and trickles, with slow, long notes, followed by a gush. Think of a stream with still pools and then little cascades. I can still hear the songs during the day, but the birds are hidden in the thick hedges that surround the garden. I scour the upper branches of the trees and holly bush outside my study, and although I can hear them, I have yet to make their acquaintance in this new place. The watery theme of the robin's song fits well in some respects with the subject of our Torah portion for this Shabbat. Moses faces the stubbornness of Pharaoh for the first time as the king emerges from his early morning bathe in the waters of the Nile. It is here that Moses asks him to let the people go, that they may worship God in the wilderness. And it is here too that Aaron will strike the waters of Egypt with his staff and turn all its rivers, canals, and ponds into blood. Rashi, the 11th century French commentator, asks, why is it Aaron and not Moses who is called upon to hold his arm over the waters of Egypt and strike the waters of the Nile with his staff? And he goes on to point out that because the Nile had taken care of him as a baby, Moses owed the river a debt of gratitude. As a result, it would be inappropriate for Moses to turn the Nile into blood. In addition to our gratitude to God, says Rabbi Yitzhak Breitovitz, a contemporary Israeli-American teacher, there is also a concept that we owe appreciation to the animals and inanimate natural resources. We have this concept of gratitude to that which takes care of us, even natural resources like rivers and rain. At the end of 7 days, when the Egyptians have to dig round about the Nile for drinking water, Moses returns to Pharaoh and again says to him, "Let my people go, that they may worship me. If you refuse," says Moses, "then God will plague your own country with frogs," the second of the 10 plagues. The rabbis of the Talmud notice that everywhere the word frogs is mentioned with regard to the second plague, it is in the plural, Sephardim, except in one verse in this week's Torah portion, Vayet Aharon et yado al meimei Mitzrayim, vata'al hatzefardea, Aaron held out his arm over the waters of Egypt, and the frog, in the singular, came up and covered the land of Egypt. A dispute over the significance of this singular noun is recorded in the Talmud between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Akiva says, it's clear what it means. There was one frog, it spawned and filled the entire land of Egypt with frogs. Elazar ben Azariah rebukes his colleague with these words, Akiva, what are you doing, occupying yourself with the study of Agadah, with Midrash, commenting on biblical texts in that way? This is not your field of expertise, he says to Akiva. Take your statements to the tractates that deal with leprosy and impurity. What he meant was that it's preferable for Akiva, an expert in matters of halakha, of Jewish law, to teach the difficulties of these two complex subjects rather than the more poetic aspects of commenting on Torah. And then Elazar ben Azariah offers his own interpretation of this singular form, Sephardeia, and he says, it was one frog, it whistled to the other frogs, and they all came after it. In the much acclaimed Eco Bible, which offers commentaries on Genesis and Exodus, the editors, Rabbis Yonatan Nerel and Leo D., expand on this Talmudic interpretation by Elazar ben Azariah. This is what they say. All animals communicate, and frogs, in particular, can produce a lot of noise to communicate with each other over other sounds like waterfalls. When King David finished his monumental work of Psalms, he was feeling confident, but the Midrash tells us that along came a frog and said, "Don't be full of yourself. For every sound I make, there are 3,000 deep parables that I'm saying." The rabbis teach that frog sounds mean, "Blessed is the name of God's glorious kingdom forever and ever," the second line of the Shema. And the commentary on this verse in Exodus ends with this Hasidic story. After the Maggid of Mezerich passed away, his students gathered to discuss their great teacher and his customs. They wanted to understand why the Rebbe went to the pond early in the morning before prayers. One of the students recalled the Maggid explaining this practice as a way to learn the song of the frogs because it is so deep and complex. When we extinguish even a single species, add the editors, we lose the wisdom of 3,000 deep parables. I am learning to live with my new neighbors who inhabit the hedges, the bushes and trees, and who I hope will continue to sing me to sleep at night or keep me awake in the early hours with their persistent watery notes and songs of praise. And perhaps when I am more at ease in this new and unknown place, I will hear in their songs not only the gurgles and trickles of their singing notes, but also the wisdom of 3,000 deep parables.